And North Carolina State Senator Chuck Edwards feels there's not enough being done to support law enforcement. Tonight, he's calling out the city of Asheville and the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. News 13's Caitlin Pintard followed a news conference where Edwards announced 2 new law enforcement related bills.
We now see local leaders in Asheville beginning to surrender to the cries, defund the police.
Mountain Area State Senator Chuck Edwards blasted Asheville and Buncombe County leaders during his announcement of 2 bills he and some of his Republican colleagues filed on Monday.
Our sheriff in Buncombe County, as well as some in other counties in our great state, refuse to cooperate with federal law enforcement. ICE.
The first bill, the Police Funding Protection Act, proposes that if North Carolina cities or counties reduce their law enforcement budget by a certain amount, then the state could cut its funding to that city or county by the same amount, unless the state deems the cuts as justified.
But I stand here in support of this bill.
The second bill is a revision of House Bill 370, which was vetoed by Governor Roy Cooper in 2019. The bill targets those arrested on felony or DWI charges. If a jail administrator cannot confirm people booked on those charges are U.S. citizens, then he or she must report them to ICE. If that doesn't happen, the jail administrator could face a Class 1 misdemeanor. In a statement to News 13, Buncombe County Sheriff Quentin Miller says ICE detainers are not valid criminal warrants. A warrant signed by a judicial official is necessary for an individual to be detained at the Buncombe County Detention Facility. Following the social justice protests in the summer of last year, in September, Asheville City Council voted to reallocate $770,000 of the Asheville Police Department budget.
To be clear, the cuts and reductions that the city of Asheville made, that's something that you guys wouldn't consider justified. And that's something that's kind of an example of why this bill is needed, in your opinion.
The cuts they made in Asheville, I'm not going to say all of them weren't justified. And even the stuff that was moved that the cops were okay with, that were moved out of their, out of their responsibility, is kind of overshadowed by the language that people were using as far as it was defunding the cops.
In a statement to News 13, Asheville Mayor Esther Manheimer says in part, this is yet another example of the General Assembly punishing local government. Asheville, like every city in North Carolina, is working to meet the needs of our residents, and instead of helping cities meet these needs, the General Assembly is prioritizing punitive measures.
The largest school district in the mountains returned to in-person learning today. Buncombe County is back in class for the first time since December. Students will alternate between virtual instruction and time together. But tonight was the Asheville City School Board's chance to consider its plan. And as News 13's Frank Crocker explains, it's not easy going.
We are asking parents to make a choice.
The ACS Facebook page was the forum for a work session, no public input.
We know pretty much that this is what we're all doing, kind of, right?
Yes.
Staff laid it out for board members, a proposal that has students alternating weeks of in-person and remote learning with staggered starts by grade. The colors blue and green help break down a labyrinth of who starts when and on which dates, from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade, beginning March 8th and ending April 1st.
What are we looking at in terms of teachers who have said they're willing to come back? Even without the vaccine.
As the 3-hour meeting droned on, parents peppered Facebook. More than 1,500 comments, the vast majority in opposition. Most called it ill-conceived, unsafe, disorganized, not really a plan at all.
Just not something that I feel great about right now.
Vina Rhodes is a family doctor and mother of 3 Asheville City school students. She'd like nothing more than seeing them back in school.
After some of the issues in tonight's meeting, I don't really feel comfortable doing that. And I am looking into other options, or maybe just continuing what we're doing at home, even though I know it'll be harder for us.
I think it's probably overdue.
Angie Flynn McIver is the mother of an Asheville High 9th grader. She says they're both ready to return to learn and feel good about it.
We've got all of these, thousands of schools, not just in our state, but across the country and actually overseas that have done this successfully, have been able to, even without a vaccines.
The school board voted unanimously to accept the hybrid plan, a combination of classroom and home. But it hinges on exactly how many parents and teachers are willing to do it. And that remains to be seen.
New at 5:30, Hendersonville's new police chief started his job today.
And News 13's Karen Wynn sat down with the new chief to talk more about his background, goals, and leadership style.
Chief Blair Myhan spent his first day on the job getting used to his new surroundings. He says he plans to spend his early days doing a lot of listening to both his coworkers and the community.
I'm a very straightforward person, and I don't know how to not be that way.
Hendersonville's newest police chief is 51-year-old Blair Myhan, who for nearly 4 years served as police chief for the town of Clayton, located just southeast of Raleigh. Prior to Clayton, Myhan was a commander with the town of Apex. He served as a Washington, D.C. Metro police officer for 11 years.
From terrorist attacks to 9/11 to drug deals to, you name it.
The new chief has family members in Hendersonville and is looking forward to uniting the community.
There's different parts of our community. They all have different ideas and thoughts, and so we've got to kind of put all that stuff together and come up with something that works for everybody.
Myhan says one of his top priorities is providing competitive salaries to keep quality police officers in Hendersonville.
A job that's dangerous, that works terrible hours and holidays, and you're criticized for every action that you take.
Kind of a tough time to start a new job with a pandemic and a lot of unrest nationally. And talk a little bit about these concerns as you move forward.
I think it's probably the most challenging time in law enforcement in probably the last 50 years. Division is among all of us has never been more apparent than it is right now.
The new police chief says he hopes to bridge that divide by giving 100% and being as transparent as possible.
From a citizen standpoint, I think, I'm tired of hearing government rhetoric, and you didn't really answer my question, and I try to take a very different approach.
Chief Myhan says he's here for the long haul. He plans to retire in Hendersonville and leave the police department in great shape.